Today's episode of the Goldcast is sponsored by Thumbtacks. Are you tired of putting up things on your wall with tape or with nails or with just your bare hands? Then consider using Thumbtacks. The standard putter on thingers for things on a wall. That's all you're getting. All right. So today's episode of the Goldcast, we have a special guest, my boy Matt Manak. He's in the building. Can't wait to have him on. Diehard Niners fan. We're going to talk some pre-draft stuff, and then we'll be back with a big post-draft extravaganza with a bunch of guests colliding at once. A bunch of diehard Niner fans and rivals all talking draft. But this is our little sneak peek preview of the draft coming up this Thursday. Here we go. Matt Manak in the building. Let's make it happen.
San Francisco, are you ready? This is the Goldcast.
Boom! Welcome to another edition of the Goldcast. We are the voice of the faithful. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and with me is my special guest, my good buddy, Matt Manak. Welcome to the Goldcast, buddy.
How we doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm hanging in there.
Right on. Okay, so let's talk, Matt. Obviously we know each other from Los Angeles here. Let's qualify, since this is the first time the Goldcast, the 49er faithful, are hearing your voice. Where are you from originally?
I'm from Sacramento. Born a Niner fan.
There you go. Exactly. I was going to say, let's talk about your sports team affiliations. Who's your teams?
The Niners, and then I'm an Oakland A's fan. Used to go to Oakland A's games. And Sacramento Kings.
There you go. I like it. All right, so let's get into this, man. All right, so one of the reasons 49er Faithful I brought Matt onto the show is because Matt is really good at talking draft, way better than I am, which is the thing I like about him. So we're bringing him in for this pre-draft extravaganza. We're going to do a post-draft extravaganza, and hopefully, Matt, you'll be able to work it in your schedule. It's going to be a lot of guys. There's going to be my brother Raymond, who's the other traditional co-host on almost every episode of the show. There's going to be this guy, Louis Bartone, who's a diehard Rams fan. We love ribbing him, and he loves ribbing us. And then we've got my buddy Pete, who's a diehard Raiders fan. So it's going to be just a clusterfuck smorgasbord of sports Bay Area and Los Angeles teams all colliding at once. But
who doesn't love clusterfuck smorgasbord?
Exactly. So let's get into it. Let's start first with, do you watch, before we get into, there's a couple questions I want to ask you, which we already talked about before, but did you ever watch CSM Bay Area at all?
No.
Okay, so CSM Bay Area is now NBC Sports Bay Area, okay?
Okay.
And this is like our local ESPN. It's not very good. I think it could use a huge shot in the arm. But I guess NBC, they're rebranding it from Comcast Sports Bay Area to NBC Sports Bay Area, and I think that this is kind of the slow build toward them trying to kind of make something out of this. Like, I don't even understand. Honestly, we've got ESPN LA, we have ESPN New York, you've got ESPN Boston, Chicago, even Dallas. I don't even understand why there isn't an ESPN Bay Area at this point. You know?
I have no idea. They have the Warriors.
Right. The Warriors, you have the Giants dynasty, you have the Niners killing it in the first half of this decade. I mean, I feel like there's a justifiable...
I think Bradley Curry coverage alone would warrant a Sports Center Bay Area.
Right? Exactly. Yep. That, and you've got Raiders on the rise. I mean, I don't know. It just seems kind of a no-brainer that there should be a Sports Center Bay Area or ESPN Bay Area, but I don't know. But
my Cal Bears are going to do it this year.
Yeah. See?
Yeah.
They talk about them on there too. So NBC Sports Bay Area, they had this Niner draft preview. All right. This thing goes like 30 minutes. It's got Matt Maiocco and John Middlecoff. John Middlecoff used to be a scout for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Okay.
And he used to be one of a radio host on our big radio station here called 95.7 The Game. Okay.
Okay.
Also owned by ESPN. So At the end, it was okay. Like, it was only 30 minutes. It was pretty much, it just kind of felt like a fluff piece. I like Matt Maiocco. You've probably seen his stuff before. He does a lot of,
A lot of articles.
Yeah, a lot of articles. Middlecoff, so they asked these guys who their top 3 picks were for, like, what the first 3 picks in the draft that the Niners had. Who were we going to pick? So Matt Maiocco went with Charles Harris, which is, he said also he thinks we trade down. Which
what do we get for that trade down?
That's what he didn't say, and that's what I was wondering. I'm like, who?
That's what makes or breaks the deal right there.
Right,
but,
and we're going to talk about that trade down in a second too, because I'm kind of curious as to what you think is who we trade down with and what do we get out of that. But we've got, so he picked Charles Harris first, outside linebacker from Missouri. Then he picked Adobe Awuzia. Man, that was a hard name to say.
Yep.
Yeah.
Out of Colorado?
Yeah, out of Colorado. And then Nathan Peterman, quarterback out of University of Pittsburgh. Now, what do you think about those 3 picks? Any of those guys stand out to you in any way, shape, or form?
No. I didn't. You know, maybe taking a flyer on Peterman in the 3rd might not be a bad idea, in my opinion. Charles Harris, really good defensive end, questionable motor when it comes to the 4th quarter. There's just so many questions with our transition over to the 4-3 now. How are all our current pieces going to fit? You know, it's really tough to kind of put your finger on where we have gaps and needs because you know how many injuries we have on the defensive side of the ball last year. You factor that in addition to the fact that we're moving everyone around. It's real tough to figure out what our needs are. Charles Harris, maybe. I mean, it depends where we get him.
Yeah, I mean, do you think first pick? I mean, even if we trade down, let's say we trade down and we're in the 12th spot. I don't even know who has the 12th spot.
Right now, you know, Armstead and Buckner projected as defensive tackles. I guess in this scheme, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I'm curious about is, you know, I've been praying for this for the last few years, but Tank Carradine, he came out of a 4-3 at Florida State, and he was just an absolute monster. His first year in, you know, he was recovering from ACL surgery, and they tried to bulk him up and kind of fit him into our 3-4, and it just never really panned out. He never really made an impact. I'm hoping that maybe Tank Carradine comes along. Someone else can jump in and fill that 4-3 defensive end spot. I'm also wondering are we going to have to slide Armstead over to play like a defensive end spot in this 4-3? I don't know how much of a need defensive end is unless you're going with one of the more versatile guys like Solomon Thomas or Jonathan Allen, who, you know, according to all draft analysts, can play, you know, any spot on the defensive line and play it really well.
Yeah, well, Solomon Thomas is another name that has been popping up a bunch. And now here was the thing that they addressed this on this draft preview, which I hadn't heard this. Tell me if you'd heard this. They said that when they were testing overall like physical ability, Solomon Thomas scored a 90, and then Jonathan Allen scored 23%, a 23. And that it seems like he seems to have a really high IQ, but there's his overall.
Oh, does the IQ or the Wonderlic factor into that number that you just threw at me?
I don't know. This is that's all they said. That's all they said on the draft preview, and I'm like, I really wish there was a little bit more on that. I'm like, wait, what's that about?
I mean, look, I look at Solomon Thomas and I see I don't follow Stanford. I'm a Cal guy.
Yep.
It'd be sacrilege for me. But I look at Solomon Thomas. I like what he sees. He looks like one of my homeboys. Used to play rugby. I used to play football with him. Just big, stout guy with a motor, never complains. I don't know. I look at him and I don't know if he's kind of crazy psycho cowboy or more Jonathan Martin out of Stanford. I don't know. He's got game though. It just seeing where we really need to fill our holes and just taking the best. I think we're just in a best player possible position right now. Best player available. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean,
Jonathan Allen, that guy's a stud too. I mean, no question. His highlight tapes, that guy's an absolute killer. The one thing that concerns me about Alabama, kind of in particular, with them having so many players rated so high on their defense is, they seem like a really solid team unit, and it can be kind of tough to tell whose strengths we're covering for whose weaknesses, I guess.
Yeah, like who's a product of the system and who's actually a product of their own athletic ability.
Solomon Thomas, I mean, he was the stud blowing every play up for Stanford. He's the clear-cut guy, leading the charge into the backfield and, smearing the quarterback into the turf. Jonathan Allen, he had Tim Williams, and he's got Reuben Foster. I'm sure there's a bunch of defensive studs on that team that were all over the place for them. So, I don't know. He also got arthritic shoulders, apparently. I mean, that's if the doctors say he's good to go. I mean, he also seems like a real smart dude. I saw him with Mariucci on one of the I don't remember what the show was called, but they took a bunch of guys from the defensive end. Charles Harris, who you just mentioned, was in there. So was Solomon Thomas and Jonathan Allen. Jonathan Allen and Solomon Thomas both seem like super high character, super smart, just savages that would be, an asset to any defensive line. I'm just wondering, where are they going to play on our defensive line? I have no idea where we're going to put Armstead. I think they're talking about putting Buckner in the 5 technique. So we'll see. Also, is Aaron Lynch going to slide in and play defensive end? Is that ridiculous?
Yeah, like where does Aaron Lynch go? I think that's one of the things I want to see most, just to get a semblance, an idea of how exactly the 4-3 looks on last year's defense in preseason and in the first couple weeks of the regular season. Where these players land, what positions they're going to be playing, and how they're going to be playing them.
Is Bowman ready to go? Is Eric Reed, is he a go? Are we still considering moving? Because Ward and Tart, we could have Ward play free safety and put Tart in at strong safety. I mean, they played together in high school, I believe, and I think Ward coming out of college, which everyone I think seems to forget, or at least I was under the impression that he played free safety in college and he was a stud. He was all over the place, crazy ball skills. Mm-hmm. So if we're doing that single high safety look, Ward might be a really natural fit for that, and move Eric Reed into the box. I'm sure he can play strong safety. I don't know. I think this is the contract year for him, so I don't know if we hold on to him. Another guy I really, really like is Jamal Adams, strong safety out of LSU. That guy's just a stud. Comparisons flying around between him and Ronnie Lott. I mean, I know that's lofty, but if we could scoop up someone in a Ronnie Lott mold, sweet Jesus.
Well, absolutely.
You'd take that. You'd take that at number 1.
Of course. Now that's what I was going to ask you. Who are your top 3 picks? I know you were pretty high on Reuben Foster a couple weeks ago,
high.
And I know he's kind of been a little up and down. Are you still as high on Reuben Foster as you were before?
I'm not as high on Reuben Foster before. I mean, one of it has to do with our team's stellar track record of off-season character incidents, I guess.
Yep.
Clearly we have a need at cornerback right now, a fresh need. So I think this year we need to just steer clear of that. Unfortunately, we don't need. I just feel like every year there's 2 or 3. I think Ray McDonald just finally got acquitted of, some charge that was floating around. There's so many charges floating around our defense over the last few years. It's tough to even keep track of them.
It is.
So I think, Reuben Foster, that guy's a heat-seeking missile. He's a beast. I don't know how much, Navarro Bowman still has left in the tank. I mean, obviously, legendary stud, but, you get 2 injuries like that in such close proximity to each other, and, mentally it's just going to it's really up to him. Where does he think he's at? Is he still going to be able to play at that level? Has he lost a step? Because, he's the defensive leader as far as I know. Jamal Adams, like I said, he's also been noted as being like a really stellar locker room leader. So if Bowman's looking like it's more the twilight of his career than the middle, then it might be time to start looking at getting another locker room leader. I don't know. I think there's no holes in his game. He just seems like a super safe pick, super high level guy. So Jamal Adams is definitely on there. Also, depending on kind of how we look, Leonard Fournette, man.
You said this, yeah. So let's do this. Tell me your top three, Matt. Is Leonard Fournette in your top three?
Yeah, Leonard Fournette's definitely in my top three, and I'll tell you why. Even I love Carlos Hyde. If I thought he could stay healthy, which he may very well be able to, but we can't rely on him for 16 games.
No, we can't.
He's a stud, but Leonard Fournette is just like a man among boys out there. I mean, I've been reading articles about him since he was in junior high. This guy is a stud. I don't watch LSU football, but if it was on, I would not turn it off when he was playing, because he just ran over everyone. Just absolute stud. And in addition to just having a stellar running game, you also got to take into account we have kind of I don't know if you noticed, but like a shady quarterback situation right now.
Just a little. I've gotten a whiff of it.
Unsettled quarterback situation. He's going to be a quarterback's best friend.
Yeah.
You're going to always have to stack the box with him. You don't want it. You think he's just a first and second down back? Great. Throw Carlos Hyde. He could be our third down back. That defensive line will be so beat up by the third quarter. It'll be insane. In addition to helping the quarterback, you've got to think about our ability to control the clock, running the ball. That will just be a huge benefit to our defense. I feel like in the Chip Kelly era, especially, our offensive sequences, they could last 30 seconds. The defense right back on the field again. That'll bleed you out over 4 quarters. So you get Leonard Fournette, and I think he helps on both sides of the ball. He'd be real tough to pass out.
That's a real good point about Leonard Fournette. You put Leonard Fournette in the first 2 downs, and then you have Carlos Hyde coming in as your third and fourth down back. I mean, and you're right, by the fourth quarter, I mean, just how many drives you can extend with that kind of a powerhouse duo at running back would be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how Fournette fits into Shanahan's system. I know we had 2 backs over in Atlanta, and he was able to keep them fresh. And if we could keep Carlos Hyde and Leonard Fournette fresh for 16 games, maybe. I mean, I'm not going to talk about playoffs this year, but I mean, just what a huge asset that would be to both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to play against them. I don't want them falling to fucking Panthers with Cam Newton. You don't want to see that. So I'd have no problem taking him off the board.
Okay, so then so you got Jamal Adams, Leonard Fournette, and then who's your third? Is Jamal Adams in your top 3?
Yeah, I think Jamal Adams in my top 3. Well, Myles Garrett, obviously, but assuming that he's not going to be there, shoot, I got to say Solomon Thomas. Just depending on what we need. I know a lot of the guys on the Niner pages are real high on Malik Hooker, but I don't think he's got the body of work. I think he's got an injury history. Garyon Conley, I don't know if you saw in the news today, but there's a rape allegation with him, so I'm sure he'll slide.
I didn't see that.
Marshawn Lattimore, I'm sure he's a stud. He's had hamstring problems. He's had medical issues. I think, the one thing we just really need to do is not fuck up this first pick. We finally get a pick in the top 10 or in the top 5. We finally have the chance to get like a generational stud. Let's make a safe pick.
I agree. Now, so that leads me to my next question which we kind of touched on earlier. So what if we trade out of it? Here's the question. Who do we trade out with? Because, here's the thing. If we're going to trade out of it, we're not going to announce it till the moment there. And I think, obviously, if Cleveland is dumb enough not to take Myles Garrett, then, yeah, we're probably going to not trade it and go for Myles Garrett. But if Myles Garrett's off the board, do we trade down? Do you really? I mean, it sounds like that's really in play for them.
Oh, I mean, absolutely in play. And if you can swing something with the Titans or the Browns and get a second first round pick or some future first round picks, then I'm all about it. But you saw with the Raiders, they got Khalil Mack, and all of a sudden I'm not saying he was the only factor, but they have a totally revitalized attitude and defense, getting just a absolute stud like that.
Yeah.
You land in the top 5. This is a pretty deep class, especially for cornerbacks. So that's why for cornerback, I would wait. There's a lot of cornerbacks. Let's see, quarterbacks. There doesn't seem to be any clear consensus on who the top quarterback is. I know a lot of guys like Trubisky.
Yeah.
He started 13 games. I mean, to take a risk with the second pick on building a franchise around a guy who started 13 games, that's pretty iffy.
And I feel like Shanahan and Lynch are smarter than that. That just reeks of a kind of preparation you'd expect out of Cleveland or like Los Angeles.
That sounds so extremely fucking Cleveland.
Yeah.
Well, 49ers hail from Youngstown. Hard love. And then Deshaun Watson, he has a great game. They questioned his arm strength. Apparently he doesn't got the strongest can of an arm. Josh Mahomes, he seems like another Kaepernick. Ideally, for me, I don't know how the faithful feel about this, but like I would, if Kaepernick isn't finding a home anywhere else, I would make it easy for him to come back to us. I'm not saying we should go to him hat in hand, begging for him to come back or anything, but I would make it as easy as possible for him to come back and play for us, because I think he's our best quarterback option. I think we ran him out of town way too soon.
I think he's our best quarterback option, especially if the general consensus does seem to be from the 49er brass that there isn't really a quarterback that they're that high on in this draft. Do you know anything about this Nathan Peterman guy, this QB out of Pittsburgh?
He played, I want to say that he played at another school that another one of like the top 5 guys played at.
He did.
And then he transferred over to Pitt.
Yeah.
And same situation with Davis Webb. He was over at Texas Tech, and then Josh Mahomes came in, took the starting spot. Davis Webb moved over to Cal. But yeah, so the quarterback picks I'm looking at is, if a Kaiser falls to the second round, then maybe you grab him. Otherwise, you got a Davis Webb, you got a Peterman, you got a Josh Dobbs out of Tennessee, who seems like a smart kid. Maybe we find a diamond in the rough, or we have time to develop. But I'll tell you, if we get Leonard Fournette, that makes his life a hell of a lot easier.
Similar to the Dak Prescott Ezekiel Elliott combo that Dallas did last year.
Yeah. If you want to put it in those terms. One thing about Dallas, though, is I'm sure you remember they had been just building the shit out of their offensive line through the draft for the prior 5-6 years or something. So their offensive line was ready to go. That would have been Tony Romo's a great swan song for him. I think it would have been a real easy year for him to get to the Super Bowl if he were able to stay healthy. His time had finally come.
Yep.
So Dak Prescott, definitely a highly skilled quarterback. I think he also just came into a system that was set up for him to succeed, and that said, the team is almost as important as the prospect, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
You could take a blue chip prospect and throw him into a shitty situation where he's looking over his shoulder after every 2-step drop and just getting battered, and you're going to give him PTSD. What if he had been behind a solid offensive line with some solid contributors around him, like a Blaine Gabbert might have turned into a pretty serviceable quarterback.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Also, Nathan Peterman, he played out of Tennessee originally.
Okay.
Yeah,
there it is.
Yeah, he was at Tennessee first. So Matt Maiocco believed that that's the guy we were going to get in the third round. Here's the thing. I think, so let's go back to this, like, trading out of the number 2 spot, right?
Okay.
I think it's in our best bet if we were to do it. We trade with a team that we believe is probably going to be in the top 5 of the draft next year. So it's another bottom barrel team, so that in the hopes that we improve to maybe, I don't know, between 4 and 6 wins next year, maybe 8. I think 8's probably pushing it, but 6. I think 6 is probably a decent, achievable number for this 49er team. And let's say that we get to 6. So obviously we're not going to be in the top 5, or possibly not in the top 5. We have the first round draft pick of like a Cleveland or you were saying Tennessee, like a team that we just believe is going to be at the bottom of the barrel next year, and we could take their pick.
It's really tough to say, but if Cleveland goes with Myles Garrett first pick, because everyone's assuming, and then they get antsy, if they have a sense that Chicago is going to say jump on Trubisky, then maybe we can get a couple picks out of him next year, and build like that. I really like Josh Rosen at UCLA next year. I think that kid's a stud. We got a lot of holes. Dropping down to 12 would not be the end of the world. It's a deep class, and we got a lot of needs. It's just that said, it's all a matter of what we get for the trade.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of players I like deep in the draft. So
it seems like defensive players seem to be the main focus of this particular draft.
A lot of good secondary players, which great. We have a lot of we got a lot of needs all over the place. But the cornerback class seems to be deep. The safety class seems to be deep. And especially with cornerbacks, it's so fickle. You pick a cornerback, top 10, expecting them to come out and be a stud immediately. It generally takes a little time for them to get coached up, at least a couple of years before they're, all pro level talent.
Yeah, especially at that position.
Or, if ideally we could pick up Jabril Peppers and then trade him back to Michigan and get Harbaugh.
Oh, don't tease me so much.
Not to insult Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, best foot forward here. Let's march on. But yeah,
yeah, but he's Jim Harbaugh.
I don't think that's how the draft works, but a man can dream.
A man can dream. I like that. I definitely like that proposal.
Yeah, man.
Now here's a question, Matt. Do we pick up a QB this draft at all? We pick up at least somebody, right?
Yeah, you gotta pick up a QB somewhere. Depending on, I don't know Kyle Shanahan's offensive scheme. If I'm going by like a prototypical Matty Ice style, I mean, he's not much of a scrambler. So, the Patrick Mahomes, the Deshaun Watsons, that running skills aren't going to be really lost on his offensive philosophy, I guess. So looking for pocket passers, Davis Webb, little raw, but he seems like a smart dude and a hard worker. I hear he wasn't great at going through all his, progressions and reads back at Cal. Another guy coming out of the air raid offense, which people say it's a tough transition, but, same could be said for Josh Mahomes. But him and Dobbs, I'm thinking about a value quarterback you pick up in later rounds. Hopefully you get a Dak Prescott or a, Russell Wilson or a Tom Brady. In a later round, you find a stud. Quarterbacks are real tough to judge, and I think you would need someone with a really solid mindset to, come into the 49er locker room right now with, all the current turnover. We don't have a really established, strong locker room as it is. As far as I know, I'm sure they still got their leaders in there, but just a lot of things in flux. So it could be a tough situation for even the best of prospects. So maybe it's best to, take a flyer on a guy if it works, great, but look down the road for the QB you really want to build your franchise around.
Now, see, here's the thing. Now, this is something else I've heard floating around. I want to get your thoughts on this. So I've also been hearing that the 49ers don't take any QB this year because they're going to put their money on,
Cousins?
Yep, Cousins. Because next year he has to be, he's basically a free agent. They can't franchise him three times. They can't franchise him 3 times. And how do you feel about that? I mean, I think no matter what, even as I say it, I go, that doesn't make any sense. I think for sure they'd pick somebody.
To me, he's a good quarterback. He had the benefit of having some awesome offensive weapons, in Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Garçon, who I guess we'll now have. He also had some studly tight ends, and who was the slot receiver guy that they brought in last year?
It's
monster. He was a killer. I don't know where he played college ball, but he was just an absolute killer. So, he had the benefit of a lot of weapons and a system that had been, developing slowly over the years. Kirk Cousins, good guy. Seems like a really solid quarterback. He's, being a 49er fan, though, you're always looking for the next Montana or next Young. So I'm gonna fucking hold my breath and pout until we find someone who looks like that, I guess.
Are you talking about Jamison Crowder?
Yes, Jamison Crowder.
Yeah, Jamison Crowder.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That guy was a monster.
Yeah, he was. And I agree. I totally agree. And here's the thing. I think the thing that Kyle Shanahan brings that we're at this moment we're not able to factor in because we haven't seen a single game yet is that if you do his track record, he's worked with RG3, which is more of the Colin Kaepernick style. You've got obviously Matty Ice last year, who's more of a pocket passer, and he's found ways to excel and win with any type of quarterback. I think the nice part now is we're putting Kyle Shanahan in a position where he can actually choose the quarterback of his personal liking and find someone that he feels caters best to his strengths as a coach. And
I don't think the front office put a ultimatum, do or die, win now sort of put him in that type of situation. I think they're acknowledging that we need to rebuild. Finally.
Yeah.
So
I think even if we only won like 3 or 4 games next year, I think he's fine. I think he's not going anywhere.
So I'm curious to see what we have coming back, and I'm curious to see how the defensive line is going to be shuffled around with our personnel. Glenn Dorsey, is he coming back?
Is Glenn Dorsey coming back? I want to say yes, but
so I mean, we got a Glenn Dorsey, and I think Tank Carradine may just fit a lot better into this. We haven't heard much from him over the last few years, but we've held on to him. So as far as I know, I'm curious to see what we do with that defensive line. There's also, there's a couple receivers that I really like. If Corey Davis somehow fell into the second round, I would swoop him up in a heartbeat. I think that guy's a stud. McCaffrey, God, that guy's a monster. If we were to trade down to 12, there's still a lot of players that I like. There's just so many holes that we have to fill. So.
Well, that's the thing, and we have 10 picks this year. We have 10 picks in the draft, and I'm really curious to see how this all goes down. I just Thursday alone. I can't wait. I can't wait. I want to see, do we trade down? Do we take a, if we stay in the number 2 spot, we have to pick someone, a generational type player that's ready to start today. And if we trade down, then I'm like, all bets are off. I don't know what we're doing if we're trading down. And I mean, I'm kind of excited either way, as long as, like you said, it's like we just can't fuck up that second pick this year.
Look, I think our first 2 picks, regardless of whether we trade down to, let's say, 12, if we were to do a trade with the Browns, even if it's just for future picks and their second round player, which I doubt. I don't know what they would give up to move into 2 if they're as hot on Trubisky as the rumors keep saying. But there's a lot of guys in this draft, and lucky or unlucky, we have a lot of needs. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We'll see. That pretty much wraps us up for today. Matt, thank you so much for coming on to the show, man. You kicked some ass.
Of course, man.
And then
Thanks.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we're gonna definitely do a post draft one. I'm thinking maybe Sunday. So if you're around Sunday, let's shoot for Sunday.
Cool.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you soon, man. Thank you very much.
All right, brother. All right, thanks.
Take care. So concludes another edition of the Goldcast. Don't forget, we are on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher, all under the moniker The Goldcast. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/The Goldcast. Instagram, and Twitter. Be sure to check out our Facebook.com page and our Instagram page. Instagram, you get those little like daily quick bit updates. Facebook, we tend to get a lot more traffic, people talking. Also got a lot of supporters on youtube.com/thegoldcast. Want to say thank you guys, all of you guys, for putting in. I mean, got a lot of people putting in their 2 cents, and it's pretty awesome. It's just nice to hear everyone getting involved. We love it. Congratulations also to the Warriors for that first round sweep of Portland Trail Blazers. We're gonna come back to the Warriors here after the draft. This is draft week, and the Goldcast, we do all 3 teams, but our number one, our bread and butter, obviously is the 49ers, so we kind of wanted to make this a 49er-centric week. We'll be back with a lot of other people from the squad, for your typical hosts and guests, all going to be chiming in hopefully this Sunday as we do a big post-draft pod. So be on the lookout for that. So concludes another edition of the Goldcast. We are the voice of the faithful. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and we'll see you next time. Same Goldcast time, same Goldcast channel.
This is the Goldcast.